everyone to CRInvestor and Flibbr's cryptocurrency show for Wednesday. Where are we? Geez, we're marching through May pretty quickly here. May 14th, 2014. Welcome everybody. Let's make sure that's muted. We don't need to hear the song twice, I suppose. Let's pull up the Google Hangout, make sure we're all on board. Yeah, looks like we've got about a half full house this evening in the lounge. Good to see we got lots of activity, lots of stuff going on in cryptocurrency land. I'm pretty stoked about tonight, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun here. I've got my resident monster trader Flibbr in the house. Flibbr, how you doing this evening, buddy?
Yeah, okay, Brian, thanks.
Good, good. You had a fun week trading?
No, too little volatility, mostly sideways. So,
Snoresville, huh?
Yeah, really difficult.
Oh, okay. I did see pictures of you and the family at SeaWorld or wherever it was through the week, so good to see that you're getting time in with the family while things are pretty quiet.
It's the only time you can do it, isn't it? Can't do it on the big run-ups.
So I suppose that not too much sleeping with the laptop on your lap these days, eh?
No, I actually felt comfortable enough to sleep in Fiat a few nights as well lately, so that's pretty odd that I feel comfortable doing that.
Isn't that interesting, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so everybody who is watching, looks like we've got some people on YouTube. We've got a bunch of people in the lounge. Hello, loungers. How are you guys tonight? Somebody want to say hello?
Hello.
Hello, there's somebody. I see we have a couple regulars. Marcus, how you doing this evening?
Good, good. I haven't talked to you in a while. Glad to be here.
Okay.
Long time.
Some people are on non-audio feeds. I do hear a little bit of feedback from somebody. So,
who is that? Dylan, mute him.
Yeah, okay, Dylan, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to mute you, buddy. Oh, it's not Dylan.
Still there. Is it me? Is it me? Let me try.
No, is it me?
It's you, Brian. Mute yourself. It's still there. What is that? You don't hear that? I can hear that.
Isn't that interesting? Maybe what happens if I turn... I'm just going to turn my local audio down. Can you guys still hear that?
Yeah.
Well, that just figures, eh? You never know with these silly Google Hangouts what's going to happen.
I'm gonna leave and rejoin.
All right. So, and what ends up happening here, guys, what we might need you to do is, Andre popped out. Oh, it's gone now.
That's better. Yeah.
All right, so, phew, must have been on Andre's end.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we got the pirate tonight, Andre?
No, I haven't got the camera set up tonight.
Oh, no pirate. Boo. Oh, well. Actually, and I don't think, you know what, that's something that I forgot to do. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Mr. Producer should have been on his game. So, Andre, why don't you tell me just in a couple sentences, you know, just a couple, maybe a minute or so while I put this show schedule together for our viewers. Tell me what your thoughts on the Bitcoin community, Bitcoin world this week, any fundamental drivers you think that are moving price, moving the market. And 3, 2, 1, go.
We've got the Amsterdam conference going on. We had the first China one on the 10th. That produced absolutely zero effect on price. We've got another one apparently today on the 15th. Again, probably do the same, zero effect on price. We've got the Amsterdam one going on. If you look at the speakers list on there, full of speakers. Again, probably as a result, zero effect on price. You got Glenn Beck doing the video with the girl that represents Bitcoin Foundation from Bitcoin Magazine. She was on it, and Jeffrey Tucker and somebody else. That was a good watch. You know, Glenn Beck's got quite a bit of a following. We've got the eBay. They're kind of saying they're considering it. Pretty much good news to buy. And obviously BitPay just getting absolutely boatloads of money to to keep on the expansion program. That's kind of basically what sticks out in my mind, really. What about you guys? Anybody else in here heard anything else apart from that, which is good rocket fuel?
Marcus, you're always good for some thoughts, and also too. Who is it? Jay? Jay, I think is this. I can't remember your moniker on TradingView, but I think you had some thoughts. Marcus, what's on your mind? You see, heard anything happening this
I've
week in crypto
I've
land?
missed everything going on in the crypto world. That's why I'm here actually. I've been away from Bitcoin for a week or two. Like Andre said, it's all sideways. I didn't see much trading, so I stood away.
All right, BTC. I love your I love your little screenshot. Well, so maybe you can explain what that is at some point. I don't know. You have anything to add to the equation? Anything fundamental going on in the market that caught your attention?
I just kind of feel like
Now we figured out where the feedback's coming from. So BTC, just so you know, we're getting the feedback from you.
really.
Yeah.
Let me mute.
Yep, it's you.
Bye, BTC. Yeah, I mean the only other thing, just quickly checking the news as well is, Coin Report said amid PBOC crackdown, richest man in Asia supports Bitcoin. I think it's old news. I think you came out with pro Bitcoin stance before, so I think it's just a regurge on that. But yeah, still it's good news. Good news. Another reason to buy. So yeah, I like it.
All right. When for those people that really aren't that familiar with Bitcoin, I'm sure. Well, if you don't know, I come from sort of stock market land, commodity trading, and I'm relatively new to the Bitcoin world. If you need to find Bitcoin links, you can always go to my website, therationalinvestor.ca, and go into the links list. And I've got a whole bunch of really fun links in here. I happen to personally like just to pop on this CoinDesk for latest news. This is just going to be sort of a reiteration of what Flibbr was mentioning here. Something that caught my attention, John Donahue, the CEO of eBay, is very interested in this whole Bitcoin integration. When I read the article, I personally found like it was sort of a rehash. That they really haven't come out and said that they're going to start something. They've just simply said that, yeah, we're working towards incorporating, eBay and PayPal have a very sort of cozy relationship. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So I'm sure PayPal right now is trying to figure out how to deal with Bitcoin. Some other things that sort of jumped out in the news for me of late. I'm a really big fan of the concept of sort of buying on the rumor, selling on the news. And so I think it makes a lot of sense. We've seen the market. It's interesting because, if we just pull up a chart, I noticed, where's my chart? Oosh, where'd it go? There it is. I noticed back in the winter time when I first started following Bitcoin. Let's put on a chart here because I'm just sort of moving in circles here. I noticed since I've been sort of playing this game with you guys, and I watched, I think it was back in February, we had a Miami conference, so that would have been somewhere in this neighborhood. I don't think it was this bar, but I think it was somewhere around here. We had a Miami conference. The market basically rallied into that event, and then as soon as the conference happened, it just totally crapped out. Then we had the San Francisco conference, and I think that was, I can't even remember exactly, but I think it was somewhere. Do you guys remember when that San Francisco conference was?
Nope, and it probably didn't blip on price either.
Yeah, because right after the conference is when everything crapped out. So, and I remember I had posted a chart, with the whole sort of concept buy on the rumor, sell on the news. Right after that San Francisco conference, that's when China came out with its latest Bitcoin ban talk. And price broke down after that. So long and short of all this is, you can see, we really haven't rallied a hell of a lot here. of late. This is a daily chart that I just happen to have here, but we had this this sort of China symposium, and I find it really weird that the China convention was basically on the heels of the Bank of China saying thou shalt not trade in bitcoins. So I found that really bizarre. And then when I was on Bitcoin, just this Bitcoin desk, and I was reading about the the actual conference itself. I don't even know whether they have it anymore. Yeah, I mean they're posting so much information here. They were saying that the convention was like in a convention hall that was built for the Olympics, and it was right at the very back of the convention hall. And that there were a whole bunch of other conventions that you had to go through to get to the Bitcoin convention. So it's really weird how that was sort of presented. And then the Amsterdam one, which is what I think the market is really interested in here, that we actually were basically right down at the bottom here a couple days ago, and it was my feeling that basically they were just going to slowly move the market up into that event, so that if they did find any buyers, from the event itself, that those buyers are not going to be buying the bottom. They're actually going to be buying a relatively, just over the short term, a relatively bid up market, and that's very typical of the market. Doesn't matter whether it's Fed announcement, whether it's earnings news, whether it's big conventions or conferences. Year after year after year, I see the same thing. It's this stuff's almost cliche. In that, basically they're anticipating that they're going to find some buyers through these conventions and through these events. And sadly, those buyers, they're not going to be buying the bottom. They're probably going to be buying the top. And then once that, if, there's, two different scenarios that can come out of it. The Amsterdam Convention, everybody smokes a big fatty, and we all cheer for Bitcoin, and a rah, away we go, and a massive new wave of buying comes in. Well, that's fine. The guys at the bottom, they're happy with that. And anybody who buys along the way, you're just sort of riding the inertia of the move. More than likely, my feeling is that once that sort of buying interest has exhausted itself, we'll probably see the market come back down, as those people that did buy at the bottom, they're selling to the people that bought into the convention. And then once those buyers are exhausted, well, then the original trend sort of resumes. We've been talking for quite a while now that Bitcoin itself has been in kind of about a 6-month bear market, which, in historical terms is nothing. I mean, I've lived through 20-year bear markets, so 6 months is just a drop in the pan. So, I guess the way I look at it is I actually like the fact that the public is kind of losing interest in Bitcoin. You don't like it from a fundamental perspective. You always want, to keep riding the wave. But what I've found, just me personally, is that bottoms very rarely come in if there's still a lot of public interest in issues. Bottoms love to come in when the public has basically written the story off and they're not really interested anymore. So basically, my general feeling, if we just pull up the daily chart, is that we've taken 6 months here now to go from the point where people were getting Bitcoins in their stockings, and news reporters foolishly showing their Bitcoin cards with their passwords on TV. I don't know whether you guys remember that story. That was funny, and some hacker just quickly went in and zipped in and grabbed his coins and sold them. But we're beyond that stage now. It's in my opinion now that the public's kind of lost interest, and all of this process over the past 6 months has basically been just getting the coins out of those weak participants' hands and back into the strong hands. And when we do our technical analysis and all that, I've tried to start actually with a completely clean chart here, because I think one thing that might overwhelm new people when we look at a chart with a whole bunch of stuff on it is they kind of get overwhelmed. So with all that said, Andre, any additional thoughts to what I've just said there?
Not really, but I mean, I would just add in that Ron has messaged me and said he will come in. He's just sorting out a headset, but the room's full at the moment. So I said when you're ready, he might not be ready for another half an hour or something, but when he's ready, just said to him, just PM me, and anybody here that wants to take the sacrificial, knife to themselves, fall on their own sword or whatever, that'd be great. So yeah, he'll message either me or you when he gets a chance. Yeah, Jesse said he'll do it. What a man, what a legend. Thanks,
Jesse, way to go, Jesse. Taking it for the team.
Yeah, you don't have to go yet though, because you can hold the slot if you want.
Okay. Anyway, you don't all have to bail. We just need one spot for Ron. And I don't know whether you guys out in internet land or anybody in the lounge watched. We had on Dan V on the show on Saturday. So it's kind of fun just to get different perspectives from people. The simple fact of the matter is when it comes to trading, no one person is right. It's really just a combination of people's thoughts, ideas. You've heard me often talk about how the market basically is emotion driven, and really, I mean, that's what supply and demand is. It's not like someone. I mean, unless of course you got $1 billion and you can move the market. Well, that's another thing altogether. But most of us sort of small retail players, having different perspectives, having different thoughts, having different ideas just presented to us just opens our eyes to the fact that not everybody looks at the world the same way that we do. Things might be different, and you might actually see something from somebody else's perspective that makes you go, well, I never thought of that before. So, yeah, that'd be great to have Ron's thoughts. I always like to hear Andre. What I find really interesting is that quite often Andre will use very similar tools that I use, but he'll actually come to a cleaner, simpler conclusion based on those tools than I would. I often sort of overthink things. So, you might even have people use the exact same information that you're using, but just present it a little different way, and it gives you a totally different message. So I think we're getting some really good value with these shows. I'm hearing lots of positive feedback, and I'm learning lots. So I appreciate your guys' help teaching me along the way here. And I think we are getting quite a few hits on these videos sitting on the website. So it sounds to me like we're doing something of value here, Andre. So I'm really stoked about all that.
Yeah, I'm going to give Ron the link now, so somebody can drop out. Either Jesse or BitVix, whoever's there.
Okay, so while you guys do that, I've been told that I don't promote myself enough, so I am just going to do a quick plug here.
Haven't you just been plugging yourself the whole show?
Sort of, but anyway, I've got to do this just because I've been told on several occasions that I don't do it enough. So I run a website called therationalinvestor.ca. I produce a number of different videos, video shows, and tutorials. Been working on my Fibonacci tutorials lately, so if you are interested in learning how fibs work, feel free to pop over to the YouTube channel for that. And as always, here comes the big plug. If you do find value, if you learn something, if you would like to reciprocate good karma, you're more than welcome to pop over to the site. We have a nice little donate button here. You can just click on that, and it pulls up the old Bitcoin donation button. You can see that, quite a few people have donated, so we're very stoked about that. Basically, that's my commercial for the show. If this is basically all on karma. If you'd like to return the favor, you now know how to do so. All right, so that's it for the plug. Let's pop on over here. And is Ron in the house? Let's see. Did Ron make it? Don't see him here yet. Oh, we got Zoinky here too.
Zoinky's coming.
Good
Wait,
to see you. Did
one,
he?
two,
So
three,
did
four, five,
did
six,
Zo-
seven,
did
eight.
Zoinky grab Ron's spot?
Yeah, Zoinky's got Ron's spot. Right, Zoinky, just you go.
Yeah,
Or,
well, I
or
don't mean
Jesse.
that. Just what I'm just gonna
Yeah,
simply
Jesse's
say
got.
is
Yellow Bear's got. Okay, it's all right. He's
okay.
Zoinky's
So,
spot. Good one, Marcus.
Zoinky, you want to pop on the mic and say hello to everybody?
Zoinky's got Asperger's. He won't communicate.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
No, I'm just winding him up. Zoinky, he's there. He's listening in. Come on, Zoinky, speak. Asperger's, yeah.
Fair enough. All right, so I guess what what the typical show. And I think I just had it up here. Let's see. Yeah, so our typical show. And I don't think I'm screen sharing that, so let's make sure we screen share that one correctly. Our typical show program here is about 2 hours. We like to have a lot of fun, so I'm not really too stressful about staying exactly on task. I do like to take the first hour and just sort of talk a little bit about fundamentals and what's in the news and what's driving things. Then at 5:30 to 6, we'll do a simple chart summary for you guys. I'll take a look at the weekly, daily, 4-hour, and 1-hour charts. Try and keep it nice and concise, so anybody who's watching the show for the first time, they can get a pretty good idea of what this BTC is up to. Then we'll open the stage for Flibbr. He'll get a nice half-hour presentation to give us his thoughts and ideas and what kind of trade ideas he's working right at the moment. And then at 6:30, we'll open up the floor, time dependent, of course, to questions and answers. And that's sort of the regular schedule to the show. Having said that, we do have others that pop in. I'm being told that Ron is in the room. So, I'll go out of my way to try and give Ron a nice 10, 15-minute window if he'd like to give us his thoughts. Hello, Ron. How are you this evening?
Hey guys.
Hello. So
Hey, Ron.
Okay. I can't guarantee there won't be. I can't guarantee there won't be screaming any second. I got some sick kids, but
that's all right. So you know what? If anything, what we can do, what we can do is. I'll just put on my screen share is fine. Ron, if you'd like to, now that you have sort of a window here, and it's about 25 after 5, so we're basically on task, why don't we give you 10 minutes, take as long as you want here, and just tell us your thoughts on the Bitcoin. The stage is yours, and if you want to share some screens, feel free. I'll pop on your little link. And away you go. So I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'm going to listen to you very closely. Go ahead, sir.
All right. I think I've got my screen sharing happening. This is just the last sketch that I've done. It's basically just an extended version of the 3 drives pattern that I've been publishing for a while now. But I decided to take a look at where RSI was, recently, and where we're at right now. We're clearly hanging out in the middle, and we could go either direction, but I wanted to see if we were going to take this last deep leg down to this third point, which I've been, projecting as a possibility. I just wanted to see, okay, what would that mean for RSI? What would that correspond with historically? And, I realized I hadn't looked at this for a while, but really if we're comparing to what we call the end of the April bubble down here, the correction in July, we had quite a deep, leg down in RSI, got down about 14, and we haven't been down that low ever since. All the sell-offs that have happened, including the entire descent of this bear triangle, they've gotten pretty low each time, but we still aren't quite that low. Not that there's any rule that says we have to get that low again, but I just thought it would be an interesting correlation if this final capitulation or whatever you want to call it, leg down to get to 300 area or even 290 could very likely bring us down to that level again, which would serve as a very good springboard, obviously, for any future rallies that come. I completely understand that this would violate all sorts of long-term trend lines, and people have drawn the various logarithmic trend lines going from the April rally and from before the April rally, and I've done them too, and I completely get it. Like I said, it's not that I can't see a scenario in which this 340 that we hit before was the bottom. I don't think that's impossible at all. I don't think there's any hard law saying that that can't be the bottom. But I also remember how much we were all pretty convinced that this the bottom of this entire bubble triangle, if you remember in that 400 zone, it wasn't really a flat bottom. But a lot of us were expecting, this whole triangle was coming down, and we saw these deep spikes here, right around 400, 380 to 400 territory. And for a long time, we all drew these triangles saying, hey, it's going to bounce down and down and down and down and down, and then it'll finally break up. And this, there were quite a few people that were shocked and surprised by the fact that that bottom of this triangle was ever breached. It just was not commonly expected. It thought, hey, we'll just bounce around inside this triangle, that'll be it. So I have at the moment a tendency to believe that these kind of bottom trend lines are not necessarily sacred, in that as many other historical patterns have shown, like a bump and run reversal pattern will actually show the speculation increasing, and it will actually go dive past the mean trend line that was there before it surfaces again. And this is kind of a common occurrence in these large speculative corrections, where everyone expects to just simply get back to the floor where we were, and there's always a little bit extra pain that happens right at the end, and it tends to catch people off guard. So this is why I don't find the idea of dropping from where we are and taking another steep leg down that crazy. And I also don't think that it would necessarily violate the long-term growth of Bitcoin. I just think that would be a pretty solid punctuation to the end of this rally. So again, I try to say it 1,000 times in chat. Just because I'm drawing this bearish-looking chart, just because this is my current play, does not mean I think this is the only way it can go. That's also why I've drawn some of these other curves here. I really do, my way of exploring these concepts is to say, hey, I'm going to throw this out there and say, based on the patterns that I'm seeing, this is speaking to me. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why this pattern is irrelevant. Tell me why I shouldn't be paying attention to this. If I'm seeing this formation here, why does that matter? Why does it not matter? Not because I'm so married to the idea that it has to be that way, but because I'm seeing patterns and formations that make me think, hey, this could be significant. If it's not, I'd love to be told why. It's also why I hate these stupid bull and bear labels, because everyone just gets pigeonholed into a certain mentality, and it's silly. I don't think any of us can afford to just be bull or bear anytime. So anyway, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat, because I've been charting both bull and bear scenarios lately. Yeah. And the thing is, I don't care if it goes up or down, as long as I'm on the right side of it.
That's and precisely. And this is, and I think it's terribly irresponsible for anybody to start. I've gotten to where I've made the call wrong enough times that if I don't have both scenarios figured out, where I can go, okay, this is how it would look like if I was wrong, and this is how it would look like if I was right, then I'm not prepared to see the signs when the trend starts to go against me. And that's happened too many times. I just, I'll be like, oh, I expected this to be the way it was going to go, and then when it didn't work that way, I didn't have anything prepared to be able to spot that it was happening. And I was caught in a bad position because I didn't see where, I said, all right, well, if it crosses this threshold, I need to give up and I need to, consider this alternate. So I'm with you. I think that if we're not, charting both scenarios and saying what would it be like if it did this and what would it be like if it did that, we won't see it coming, and
Okay,
it's just not smart. So
let me just talk to you about this chart for a minute, because this is what I've been talking to you about chat. It's great to finally voice it, because you can communicate about a million times more efficient.
Typing in the chat is ridiculously infuriating.
But yeah, I mean, let's just say, so we went up to 1,200. We've bubbled. Everybody knows it's a bubble, and the price has obviously got to retrace. And so we all know it's going to pull back and it's going to come down. It's probably going to then it's going into a bear market. It's going to wind down, whatever. But each major, huge big tail on these downtrends, was driven by a fundamental real life event.
Absolutely.
That was causing people to just all turn bear en masse and absolutely panic sell like it was going out of fashion.
Right. Those are the cascading waterfalls. And so what you're saying to me is you're saying what is going to be that waterfall? What I'm confused at the reason why you're asking, because none of us knew what that thing was before the last waterfalls. So it's kind of weird that you would think that I should have that answer on hand now, because I don't know what the news is going to be. I just know that there seems to be a very convenient correlation between when the TA says, hey, this is pretty possible, and then suddenly news appears that just fits, that just happens to say, hey, look, we could have gone off a cliff here, but we won't. Oh, look, this news just happens to hit. I mean, so just because I don't know what that news is going to be, just because I don't have that prepared ahead of time. I mean, if I had that ahead of time, geez, I'd be a hell of a lot richer than I am now. But that's the point, is that none of us know. I mean, when we were up here, sure, we're up on top of this plateau, and there was the worries about GOX. Hey, what's going to happen with GOX? But is GOX going to go down? We don't know. And then, when the real, the Bitcoin withdrawals being shut off, that caused a big old panic. Chinese news here and there forth, but none of us knew the days beforehand what that news was going to be. And so I guess that's why I'm comfortable with saying, yeah, I completely agree that there's going to need to be a spark, but I don't view that as in the same way as saying, well, if it happens, then I just look up and go, oh, well, you know what, this never would have happened if it wasn't for the news. All this analysis is really just silly. I'm like, no, actually, this is why I like having an analysis that describes a scenario in which a sell-off could happen, so that when the news comes, it's not just simply blamed and said, well, that never would have happened except for the news. And I'm saying, no, that's just simply the spark. The conditions get right, the wood is dry, it's all stacked nicely, and if the spark comes, that's what it takes to get everyone panicked, like you're saying, and causing the big sell-off. Do I know what that's going to be? No, but I do know, and I've been saying this till I'm blue in the face in the chat, that the People's Bank of China, the big wigs in China have not yet clarified what they will allow. All we know is they're really pissy about the withdrawals and the deposits for the exchanges, and that we don't have yet any instructions that say, okay, we didn't like that, but we will allow this. So it's still up in the air. There's still uncertainty.
But we do know that the PBOC has issued a statement saying that Bitcoin is not illegal.
Correct, but I don't think
clear as day.
But there does not. We never had a statement saying Bitcoin was banned that caused these sell-offs. These sell-offs came from banking issues. So the idea that says, well, the only thing that China could possibly say is Bitcoin is banned, that's the only thing that could possibly cause a sell-off, and we know that Bitcoin isn't banned, that's a completely false argument, because there's plenty of other things that the People's Bank of China can do that would further restrict capital flows in and out of the exchanges without banning Bitcoin. That would be enough to cause a price sell-off. There's 1,000 other scenarios. I mean,
other scenarios.
Andre, they say, right? You can't write better fiction than reality.
Yeah, but we've got. We've got two major Chinese exchanges. We've got Huobi and OKCoin. Both have got recharge methods, which are kind of like totally unrelated to the banking sector at all.
And yet those recharge methods are currently, that there's a big question mark hanging over them, because those recharge methods are also used by other internet retailers, and those guys are very keen to say, hey, you're putting caps on, like, what is it, $1,600, like the maximum they'll allow to do these recharge methods. And there's pressure right now to say, hey, you guys are regulating and not letting these internet e-commerce systems use these recharge methods over a certain amount in order to prevent money laundering and capital flows. Why aren't those same limits being placed on these Bitcoin exchanges? And we don't know yet. I mean, that's just one little thing that could come out. There could literally be one. It would be like a minor blip where they would just simply say, yeah, those recharge codes, go ahead and keep using them, but guess what? $1,500 limit. Bam. That's it. I mean, that wouldn't be the end of the world. It wouldn't kill Bitcoin in China, but you can bet it would cause a waterfall. It would cause another, oh, shit, now the exchanges are going to be even more constrained. And yes, but I mean,
I think, what I'm hearing, guys, is that, this is, and I think Ron basically outlined it very well, is, none of us have a crystal ball. I mean, we just don't, right? And so as traders and as investors, I think a big thing here is we have to respect what the charts are telling us, and then set ourselves up for different possibilities. I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen. And we just want to be prepared. And actually, when I heard Ron say that, it was just, oh, that's poetry the way he said it. Just that we want to be prepared that if price action does act a certain way, like he has a very well-defined downtrend line there off of the A and B points there.
I mean, if that gets breached, all bets are off, man. I throw this all out, and I'm going up the brown lines. That's
right.
the point.
The point that I would just make is that we haven't broken that.
Right.
And, I've seen time and time again, the market will tease you. It'll run up and it'll kiss those areas, just trying to see whether they can get some retail people to take the bait.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. So, I mean, I understand you want to debate this, Andre, and, anybody who paints a bearish scenario, you're basically better put the boxing gloves on with Andre.
Well, no.
All right.
No,
it's running it through, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not that he's opposed to saying there can't be a bear scenario. He's just saying you got to give me a good reason why we're going to freak out and panic. And all I'm saying is we didn't know what the reasons were before the last ones, and that's why it caught us off guard. Sometimes Sometimes the TA said, "Hey guys, this is a dicey place." But what I also remember is we were also so incredibly sideways. I mean, did the chart change now? Are you guys seeing the one with the big purple text box?
Yep.
So remember here, up on top in January, we had this long, like kill me sideways period, and of course, plenty of people were perfectly bearish, saying, "Hey, this is going to go down," but it was sideways enough that there was, well, every time could it be this or that, and each one of these times there's been these boring flat areas that make us wonder. They say, "Hey, this could go both ways," and then it ends up, news comes and heads off. So I guess what I'm saying is, yes, we're in this sideways, and yes, it is relatively strong. I mean, we're not drifting down, at least. We're drifting up. This last little leg here definitely has a positive bias, for sure.
That's what I was just going to point out. It's ever so slightly different.
It is very slightly different there, and I would completely agree that is not only the case, but I think that is because there are so many minds in the market right now thinking, hey, there's all these lower trend lines saying we should have bottomed out. I think when you have a sideways that has a certain bias to it, that tells you a lot about just the generalized sentiment of the market, where it's like, you know what, nobody has any impulses, nobody's feeling confident enough to do anything bold, but in a sideways it has a drift. And that generally tells you, all right, we think we're done falling. We don't have a reason to fall right now. We don't really have a reason to party, but we should be done. I agree that bias is there. This RSI that I circled at the very end I only noticed today, and I said, hey, wait a minute. I was surprised when I looked at the 4-hour how high this had to reach, because I've been tracking this. There's this. So you see this. I've got this inner band here on my RSI. It's at 60. And I've been following this for months, and I kept noticing how RSI would very frequently top out around 60 and just not get above it, and yet it would constantly drop below 30 down here. And I said, okay, well, that just must be this offset that happens in a very bearish market, which we've been doing for months and months and months and months. We're in this constant bear downtrend. It makes sense that RSI would be offset to the lower, part of the spectrum. But then, of course, it's punctuated by these strong rallies. We've got January, March, and April. And each time, not only does it get above 60, it gets above, my upper line of 70 here. And that's a very significant price move. And then I said, well, look at this. We have this last one here. We just did this. This was this, but look, comparison, look at the price difference. We have this massive rally that takes us up to the bear triangle, and we, of course, spike way up. We have a similar spike that finally breaches 60, and look what the price did. Barely anything. And what I'm trying to, and this is why I'm asking, I'm saying, hey, when you see that, my completely amateur mind says that was a lot of buying pressure needed to get that rise to happen. And it petered out and it went back, and that's fine. But what I wonder is there, how else should I interpret that other than thinking, wow, that rally in terms of strength was very limited in terms of price action. Does someone else have a different take on that? I just don't know how else to see that.
Well, when we crashed from 1,200 and we went back up to 1,000, that was one 4-hour Willy cycle. Took us back from 450 up to 1,000, and now one 4-hour Willy cycle is taking us up about $20 or $30.
Right.
So yeah, it's like loads of buying pressure, and it's just not going up. But at the same time, loads of selling pressure.
Maybe that's right. Maybe that's normal. In terms of saying that's the whole point of the MACDs. The oscillations are narrowing. There's just the swings just aren't there. So I agree. Yeah, in both directions. Yes, you got a very low RSI here. It doesn't take us down very far either. And that's precisely why I ask. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's just, that's what happens when you get to the end of this oscillation where price just doesn't go anywhere, even with things swinging all over the place. But that just in the long picture, I thought that was a little telling in terms of this. Okay, this green arrow here. So this hope that we have a positive bias on the sideways, that we're not slipping like before, like after March. Look how we were just slipping.
Yeah, the others were rolling over.
Yeah, we're always rolling over. Now here, for once, we're not slipping. And that's a good sign, but what I'm trying to figure out is, can we really launch across this bear triangle into 500 territory if it takes this much effort just to go up a few bucks? I don't know that we're in a position to do that kind of a rally. Could we slide along this orange? Probably, because that looks to be about the most strength we have right now, is just to amble through the bear triangle. I'm not seeing the power to do any kind of shooting rallies. So I agree we could slide sideways, but I don't know how we can shoot up.
So Ron, while we've got you here before the kids explode, there's about 4 points here that I heard you talk about that I'd just like to touch on.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan of seasonality. Okay. And I don't know whether the Bitcoin has enough trading history to really be able to infer seasonality. But I thought it was really interesting how you pointed out last July's low marked a significant pivot point. So I'm wondering, just off the top, when we look at Bitcoin, do we have a seasonal sort of troughing window there in midsummer? Is that, what do you think? Is that typical of the Bitcoin?
I haven't ever bothered to make such a comparison. If we went back even farther, we would see that before the April rally, we had a very minor rally in August, and then kind of a correction there by October, and a rally up through again. This data doesn't go far enough back. You know what? I do have another one though. Let me pull out the combined GOX plus Bitstamp one that everyone's been throwing around lately, because maybe that would show us better. I think the difficulty comes in that the same way that Bitcoin is a 24/7 market, doesn't have weekends and closing dates and whatever else, and is also not exactly affected by the typical financial world cycles in terms of, earnings reports and government reports and, gross product estimates and all that kind of stuff. It really just kind of has its own heartbeat. And
what I'd love to do, if you could there, Ron, just go into your tools and pull out the vertical line and just throw on a vertical
Yep.
line in July for these years here. Just throw it on that chart. Let's see where
Right,
those
so
pop
there's
up.
a July in 2013. There's a July in 2012. Here's a July in 2011, and here's where July will be here.
All right.
So
No trend.
I'm not seeing a particular correlation.
Okay, so that was
So-
question one, and as
Yep.
time goes on, I guarantee you, over the years, we will see some sort of seasonality come out of this. I think the market's just trying to figure out what the sort of benchmarks are that we use to value this thing is right now.
So let me give you one possible other answer to your seasonality question, and this is the chart that I made a while back that showed a periodicity of 234 days.
Mm-hmm.
Which has been repeated here. I mean, I don't know what the significance of that period is, but from the August 2012 correction here up to the April 2013, and from April 2013, November 13, you see these white vertical sections. These are all 234 days apart.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a very clear repetition of that correction to the April top, from the April top, to the November top, and therefore a projection of saying this would put us about the end of July, where the next 234-day cycle would be. So
and that, according to that analysis, we should be looking for a peak into that event.
if you subscribe to the idea that this is what happens,
Yeah.
if you subscribe to the idea that actually what we have is,
I think that's Andre's feeling.
well, now to be clear, I also think we are going to have a further rally, but I'm more of the bump and run camp that says, we'll do something like this, and we will have a rally in July, but it won't be to challenge the all-time high so much as it will be to get back on a longer trend line and then have a larger rally later. In either case, a July rally could still happen. It's just a question of whether are we launching from this point or are we launching from a lower point, and
Right.
Is that next rally that happens in July really one that challenges the all-time high, or is it simply a kind of echo rally that ends up finally correcting what some of us see as this dual bubble being kind of one bubble?
Yeah.
That's where this here, in fact, that's what this shows. Here, see this? So we've got a pink. So here's the pink version. Here's the purple version. Here's the bubble, 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 where we hit July here and we're going up, or we do have a rally, but it ends up being lower than the November one, and only once it returns to this lower, older trend line do we then have a rally. So, again, two different ways that could play out, but both of them still expecting some kind of rally in late summer.
Right, and it's in that dovetails nicely. Because I work with a bunch of guys out of Chicago, or I should say I worked. That's still up in the air right now. But anyway, and they have on a Bitcoin analyst that comes in, and he keeps throwing out this $250 level. He keeps saying that the street's expecting 250. The street's expecting 250. So I mean, that's interesting that because your little your thesis of the bump and run.
Yeah.
We may not actually close at 250. We may have one of these sort of panic dumps where you get just a monster tail on the candle, and it's a trap, and then we actually rally out of that event. That's perfectly realistic in my mind. And just one of my notes that I heard you talking about earlier, I put a note on my ledger here that I thought I just mentioned that 250 level again.
That 250 level, I think really has to do with the previous April high of 266 here.
Yeah. That
there's an expectation that we're not going to have full closure from this November bubble until we have kissed the previous high.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have right now a chart that shows the TA of necessarily how we get there, but I do have just a long-seated feeling that psychologically what happened with Mt. Gox is, Mt. Gox, of course, had there was a very clear economic reason why, Gox went through the floor. And the shutting down of Bitcoin withdrawals, skewed the prices. I mean, it made arbitrage impossible, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, Gox imploded. However, what happened as the entire market watched the price of Bitcoin from the one-time past leader of Bitcoin, Gox, basically break through all sorts of previously thought to be sacred, unbreakable lines saying, well, you can never fall back below what your previous low was. Oh, we had a previous high in this bubble, and that's inviolate. You can't go below that. And Gox just kept blowing through those. And that I remember watching on Gox just how psychologically chilling it was to say, oh, we're going below. And all the other exchanges kept riding up high, of course, because they were insulated from Gox because there was no arbitrage. You couldn't get your coins out. And so all the other Western exchanges are kind of going, wow, that's crazy, but hey, we're not going to go that low. But in my mind, psychologically, a line had been broken in the sand, and I always had this niggling thought in the back of my head that said, you know what, someday those other exchanges are not going to feel that they have finished their journey until they also deal with that previous all-time high line. They're never going to feel quite like maybe they've come full circle. Yeah. That's just my personal theory. It has no there's no I don't know anything behind that. But that's when you say, hey, the street is expecting 250, that resonates with that thought in my mind, is that there's just not closure until that's happened.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can just add
okay. No, Andre's got to come in. All right, Andre, go for it.
I mean, what I say is, with the Bitcoin ecosphere getting more and more developed, it's not going backwards. It's just continually going forwards all the time. And every time more people come in, it's more coins distributed between fewer people. So that's one thing. And the other thing is it's exponentially harder to go down, because obviously people who sell up, they can buy more coins, and so when Gox was like dead, I mean, you even had Carpel's Willybot just selling the hell out of it, and even that couldn't breach $70 because the exponential difficulty of all the fiat that was in Gox, it could just keep on absorbing it at those levels. Correct. So it does get harder and harder and harder,
I do agree that the longer this goes on, the higher this overall trend line becomes, and so any correction back down to the bottom of this pitchfork, as more time goes on, that ends up being just a higher price. Like this pink line I've got here, if it took us until 2015 to make this arc and then come back down again, well, even touching the low trend line, that's 420. I mean, now just by virtue of time having passed, the growth will have taken it to where what would have been terribly low back here just isn't so low anymore. I do agree that there's a massive amount of buying pressure down there, but I don't think that I think that previous high of 266 from April really would be a major firewall. I don't get the sense that there's a market psychology that says, hey, we can't let it get down that low. I think the market psychology says, that's about as low as I can possibly imagine, and then I'm going to buy the shit out of it. I think that's people's pretty much their bottom. That's their last stand wall at that point.
And you could argue that if you're a trend follower like a turtle, that's where you'd have your order to buy.
Correct.
You just have it sitting there, and you just say, look, if it takes a couple of years for it to get back there, so be it, but that's where I'm going to buy.
And it could be unlikely and so forth. As more time goes on, I am with Flibbr that, let's say we're up here in 2015, a return to 266 in the 2015 area would violate a lot of trends. But right now, there's room for us within this long-term fork, within this long-term trend line, for us to hit 266 right up until about October of this year, late October. There's room.
And so, what was the fundamental driver last July for that tank? I don't know whether it's seasonal forces. Keep in mind that there's an old adage in the stock market that just basically says sell in May and
Right.
walk away.
Are you talking about the end of the April correction where we saw kind of the low and then it carried on to the next bubble? Do you mean that?
Well, no, I just a different chart that you showed that we made our ultimate low last year. I guess that's the one there in July. And
yeah,
so I'm just wondering what's the significance of that time of year. That's all.
There may be a significance that time of year. Maybe that's what we're approaching here. I mean,
and I also noticed, and actually it's great that you brought this chart up because this dovetails nicely too with the next thing I wanted to say. I'm a really big fan of M's and W's. Basically the technicians call it market structure.
Right.
So when I look at your RSI right now, I see a lot of M's. And I see every time that we rally off of these spike lows, we conveniently put in another pretty tight little M. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't buy the spikes lower, but if this was a bull market, I want to see W's on that RSI rather than M's. Right. And what concerns me about the RSI at this current level is that we haven't really put in a solid W there, so I can't believe that we have a real clean base to break out of and move higher in earnest.
Yeah, this trend right here, somehow this just does not work for me for the same reason. It's not as much as yes, it's middle of the range. Yes, there's room to move. There is room to go up here, but it doesn't feel like there's a completion to the pattern.
Right, and and it's interesting that you've drawn just that little trend line off of those lower lows there. It feels, just from doing this for 20 years, just feels like that RSI needs to go down there and challenge that trend line.
Right.
So, I mean, someone, we all, look at this from a different perspective, and I mentioned this earlier. This is why I like to have different perspectives on, is that, when I look at that RSI right there, that to me, that's not an overly bullish scenario that I see on the chart. It feels like we're still in this sort of corrective process. So I look at the RSI, then I look at price, and you kind of mentioned this a few minutes ago, and I think it sort of dovetails nicely. On the lower time frames, we have lots of gyrations, like 1 hour, 4 hour. We're moving back and forth, and you can swing trade that, and there's money to be made. But if you really zoom this action in, over these past these past couple little cycles, maybe we're getting like $20 moves. And that $20 move is driving your momentum indicators into overbought conditions. I think you had a chart on there earlier that showed that. So the point that I would just make is that we're spending a lot of effort, and I remember Andre saying this the other day, maybe a week or two ago. We're taking a lot of effort. We're really, really, really working hard to get like a $20 rally.
Yeah.
And we haven't broken those significant trend lines, just the simple down trend lines. So the question is, when I look at that chart that you're showing right there, that actually looks very disturbing. If you draw an uptrend off of that RSI, is the red line there RSI?
Yes, this upper one here is RSI.
Yeah, there. You see how we're making an M right there, right on that trend line?
Yep.
If we break through that trend line, this bull runs toast. Yeah. In my opinion. So that concerns me. Markets, they'll, how am I trying to say this? Like we had that big dump there, right? Just a little bit left to your cursor there, right?
Yep.
We had to clean that up, right? So the market was oversold. That had to get cleaned up. Now, we haven't broken any significant downtrend lines. And we have now cleaned up that oversold condition. Market's not oversold anymore.
Correct, but we've come all the way back up to the top of RSI, but we've only gained maybe 50-60% of the price we lost.
That's right. So, you know, the problem here, and this kind of sort of dovetails into this notion that, you know, they've run the market up into, you know, and now, I mean, you could argue that we have two sort of significant fundamental drivers here happening in the middle of May. We had this China convention that I sort of made reference to. It sounds to me like it was a little bit more of a dud than what people were kind of hoping for. And now, you know, we're in the process of, I think it starts tomorrow, where, you know, and I remember Andre back in February, March was saying, hey, we're all going to Amsterdam. We're going to have a wicked party at this convention. This is going to be our coming out party. We're going to rock and roll.
Right.
And what I see is that, yeah, they've relieved the oversold condition into that event, but what happens on the other side of that event? Is there any other reason to buy this thing?
Yeah, this is why, you know, Low Pro has been, you know, expecting this kind of exit here, where he's saying, all right, we'll do this, and then we're going to exit out the top, and I'm not seeing the conditions here, the strength in the rally or anything that shows why that would be. I mean, I guess at best I can see sideways. I can't see a rocket out of this. Yes, it may not drop off a cliff if the news doesn't arrive. I know, you know, people snicker when they, you know, when they talk about bringing up Benjamin.
Hold on, run, just a second. Just what I want you to do on the left-hand side of your chart, you see the similar pattern in RSI. A little bit left. Yeah. Oh, no, now back to the right. The point I'm just making is, you see how you've drawn that uptrend line off of your RSI? Yeah, that's what I want you to do. So see how we have this M top in the RSI here, and the break of that trend line was trouble, right? So that's what, you know, we're kind of seeing similar kind of action here, where we're putting in an M top right at the trend line, and a break of this trend line could be problematic. So that's the kind of thing that just jumps out. You can see another one that happened just you just had your mouse over it, right there. So you can see exactly the same thing. So this that should be a warning sign to people. You know, don't get too optimistic here.
They did not result in huge panic sells for sure, but all they did was just result in a general sliding and sliding and sliding and sliding.
Right.
So, you know, the panic sells come, you know, as Andre has said, when there's some kind of news to correspond with it that makes people go, whoa, China's screwed up and banks are going to shut off. Yeah, that causes the massive sell-offs. But overall, the weakness, I mean, the trend angle of this entire bear triangle does not seem to be done. Yes, we do have this slight bias upwards here, whereas compared to this bias that we had here, where we're like sliding down, our sideways, you know, go to sliding down. We have a sideways here, which is indecisive. It's not sliding, it's also not going up, but it's struggling with each one of these RSI series to get any further, even though it's going through the entire motion. It's saying, gosh, we're making all the effort and getting a little bit less, making all the effort, getting a little bit less.
So the key that I would just point out here, right, and unfortunately, you know, as a broker, and this is sort of why I developed that Willie indicator, right, is that Joe Q Public, they don't really understand half of what we just said there.
Right.
So anybody who's watching this show, what I hope you can take away from this is that, you know, we are always obsessed with trade location, and, you know, does it make realistic sense that this is the area where you should go and spend your hard-earned money and go and buy Bitcoins? And, you know, just what I'm seeing here from your chart analysis, and, you know, Flibbr will have his in a bit and I'll do mine, is that I'm concerned, you know, looking at your indicators, that this is not a good trade location. It actually looks very dangerous, in my opinion.
It's indecisive for sure. And the difficulty with the indecision is that, yes, while it could still drift one way or the other.
Is that Willie on there? Did you put Willie on that chart?
It's been down there the whole time.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize that was Willie. So, you know, you look at Willie there. Willie looks quite concerning. That looks a little disturbing to me.
It's hourly. It's just an hourly spike, isn't it? I mean, you can see that going down, touching the trend line. I mean, you'll see my chart later. 4-hour, Willie's got bags of room to reach the top of that triangle.
So here's the 4-hour, and without a doubt, this could still get up to here. And this is what I've been, showing before, is that yes, there's a little bit of room to get up to the top of this triangle. But this is where I disagreed with Lopor, where you're saying, hey, the indicators show that we still got room to go up. Now, Bitstamp's triangle is very different from this. When Flibbr shows his chart and shows Bitstamp, you'll see that his wedge is much longer. It really does have more room to oscillate a few more times. For some reason, BTCE has a very different wedge right here. They often are pretty close to the same, but BTCE has been following some very different. Their order book is just off lately. It's not. It's really doing its own thing. Their order, like the order book on Stamp and BTC, is usually very similar, but just with different scales in terms of the size of the orders. But lately, BTC's order book has had literally different formations and different kinds of patterns in the walls. And what I think has happened is it's created this formation. And I would think, all right, if I'm going to match Flibber's triangle, I've got to have something more like this, or I've got to have this longer, wider triangle. But if you can see very clearly, BTC has made a great amount of effort to follow this bottom trend line. I mean, it's been clinging to it very carefully. Each one of these, these wicks have just been dancing off of it over and over again. So for whatever reason, this triangle is tighter. Yep.
Okay, so that leads us into a couple other things that I wouldn't mind just touching on. So first and foremost, I guess my first question is, you say BTCE, but
Yep.
I see on your chart that's the Bitfinex.
Oh, you know what?
I didn't even notice.
I didn't either. This has been happening to me lately. My chart sources have been changing spontaneously. I'm not kidding. I copy this over, and this keeps happening to me. And I keep losing my drawings, and I keep going, why are all my drawings gone? And I'll look at the source. Yeah, there we go. Great. Yeah, this has been happening for the past few days, where I'll just be like, what is going on with my chart? All right. Thank you for catching that, because now I'm not nearly as confused. Nevertheless, that also explains. Oh, you know what? You can see it just as well on these. I drew these parallel channels here before. I know it's messy as hell, but you can see very clearly how BTCE is just clinging for dear life to the bottom of this trend line. It's just saying, no, we're not going to capitulate. We're not going to let go. And it has a date with this upper trend line. And this whole march up has been, desperately not wanting to fall out of the channel, but boy, it's not strong. That's not a strong grip. I mean, that just looks tenuous. It's not bouncing along healthily. It's just flat along the bottom of this trend line. And yes, it's going to want to, reach this top of this localized triangle, but there's just not much more room to move here.
Okay, so this brings me to my next question.
Yep.
And really, this is just a simple, it's opinion. I don't think anybody really knows. But my question is, if I understand correctly, BTCE is in Eastern Europe, and I've heard a lot of scuttlebutt from people that it's maybe mafia controlled, that there's maybe some nefarious influences.
Right.
Do you think from one exchange to another, price is manipulated to try and achieve certain things by the operators of the exchange itself, totally aside from what's going on elsewhere?
I've never gotten that sense from all of my watching of BTCE that somehow I see lots of manipulation, but none of it says to me, oh, this is the operators doing it. Number one, BTCE is never really looked to as the leader. There's been so few examples where BTCE is the one to really lead the charge on any rally. It does often telegraph what's about to happen, just because I think there's a lot of insiders that seem to be operating on BTCE, but you don't see the other exchanges necessarily whipping their heads around and going, oh, freak, BTC is dumping, we got to react. You don't see that. You'll see them telegraph, but others won't react. So I have a hard time conceiving of a scenario where it's like, all right, the mafiosos at BTCE are somehow rigging the market by tweaking BTCE's numbers because nobody seems to care. They seem to be the ones that react. I do think that there's now a certain amount of Chinese influence on there now that you've got BT supporting Chinese fiat, and it would not surprise me if many Chinese traders who are sick of the shenanigans with Chinese exchanges have found a new home on BTCE. And clearly, they don't have the same transparency as other people. We don't know who exactly is in charge of what. It's very opaque, and I completely get why that's sketchy to some people. To me, I think that reveals a certain amount of information in itself.
Okay.
Just so, but no,
Well,
I just wanted to ask. Yeah,
I just wanted to ask.
I never bought the whole, the exchange themselves manipulating things. But do I think there are whales on BTCE manipulating stuff? Absolutely. I just don't think it's the operators themselves. I think they've got such a profitable racket just doing the trading. I think they're raking it in without having to screw with the market.
Okay.
Ron, is there a whale defending levels? Are they defending levels right now over there?
So right now, oh boy, I haven't checked the order book in a while. So right now, I've been talking about this array of 100 coin walls. There's this I've never seen this pattern before except for in the past few weeks. And somebody on BTCE has been spreading an array of 100 coin walls in a perfect formation, usually about $1 or $2 apart. And they're just stacked like fence posts. And there'll be 5 of them. And they've been doing this at near the top of every one of these rises. They've been very good right here. So where was it? Beginning of May, then right here on May about 10th and 11th, this array of walls appeared right at the resistance points where you would expect, just literally at the top of where you would say, hey, this is probably where it's going to run out of steam anyway. And whoever's doing it has been very good about timing it. But they're not doing it in the way that walls are usually done to try and okay, let's suppress the price. He literally throws the walls down and says, I ain't moving them. And the market just pushes right through them, and all of his asks get bought. And he's done this now. This is the 3rd time, but this time the price is this rally is so weak, it doesn't look like it's going to eat up all of his asks. There's 100, 400, 150, 150, and 300. I mean, there's some really big walls to 450 here. And right now, each time this has happened, those walls have been positioned right at the maximum of where you would expect a rally could possibly hit.
So, Ron, do you have a order book or something that we can see?
Let me see if I can switch over. Where's my Google Hangout window?
I've only got you for a limited time here, so I'm just going to tax the hell out of you.
So hold on. How do I choose which window here? Oh, there it is. Let's see if it's going to be a vertical window here. Do you see this?
Go on Pentech.
There you go. That's good.
So there's QT Trader. I've got these grouped right now just by half $1 groupings. Here's the asks on the left, bids on the right. So here's the 2 points of interest. Right now, a rally, by my charts and by the limiting triangles, should max out around 440. And that's precisely where you see a pretty fat ask wall just saying, hey, I'll suck those up because that would be a nice peak to get all my asks in right there before it fell again. There's still quite a few more, and 450, up until today, there was a 1,000 coin wall at 450, which was basically, based on some other trends that I've shown, would be really just the most you could hope for from a rally in this particular scenario. That's gone. I think the guy who had, from what I'm seeing of this spread of these other red, you can see these other red numbers here, I think he broke up that 1,000 coin order and figured, you know what, I'll put some of these in a little bit lower. The other thing to note is this guy over here. On the right-hand side in the bids column, there's a 2,000 coin bid at 414.5. This is not normal for BTCE. On Bitstamp, you might see, pretty big walls there, but this is a very unusual order, especially for the past weeks or months. And that is such a large wall for a single point on BTCE that my interpretation so far is that, well, and just here, let me
Is that a website? Can you give us that link, or is that
it's
your
not.
account?
That's a trading client called QT Trader, and you can use it to actually trade on BTCE, but you have to have an API key and so forth. And all I'm doing right now is just showing just the order book.
That'd be good information to have.
Have a look on the link I just put in the chat,
Yeah,
Brian.
there are some other I think Andre's got some. Oh yeah, Penick. Yeah, that's a decent one.
Hey, Ron. One thing I would say, right, that guy with the 2,000 wall
Yeah.
is, you see this, or used to see it, especially a long time ago, all the time on the LTC BTC ratio,
Right.
and that is, they do play both sides at once, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if that big one is there to keep it propped up while they
Correct.
just offload them all up high, and then shovel that big
And
one down
That
even
is
more.
that is precisely my thought right now. Is that if I can let me see if I can switch over here. Let me show you
So
on the chart.
I just pulled up Andre's screen here. I don't know whether you can see my screen or not. So this 2000 bid at 414. That's basically this vertical line you're talking about on your
And
link, Andre.
that's
Yeah.
been there for about 1 to 2 weeks now. Now let me show you if you want to. I'm sharing my black and white chart again here. Let me show you what that corresponds with, and it'll be very obvious why it's where it is. Look at this bottom here.
He's on the bottom candle.
You
Is that where he is?
Yeah, but he's specifically on the bottom candle of this bounce here. See, we have a double bottom there, and if we have another one here. Right now, what he's doing is basically he's confirming this double bottom from this entire series.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, maybe he does intend to buy 2,000 coins because he thinks this will be the permanent floor and it will just shoot up from there. I don't think that's the case. I think what he's doing is he's trying to provide a sense of security to everyone else that is the floor, so that the price is just not. It's not going to get. I mean, it's hovering up here because it feels like there's a really big trampoline below.
Yeah, well, it's path of least resistance, right?
Yeah.
So if the market is putting in those lows, and people are doubtful, they'll look at him, and like you said, that order hasn't been around for too much longer. If we got just some fat finger guy who comes in and sells 500 coins at the market,
That's right.
it's gonna
There's a fire
find a buyer there at that 14 level, right? As opposed to having to go down to like $50 or something, right?
Right.
So now the sad part about that, and I think you guys have sort of reiterated this, is that that order can get pulled very quickly. And I suppose as wise traders, we just got to keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
The day that he does pull that order should be a big warning sign to us that look out, we might be heading down in earnest.
So if Andre is correct, I mean, and this could perfectly be that the same guy is playing both sides. The person who's been putting up the array of 500 coin walls, and there have been a pair of 250 coin ask walls in the order book, and those have been, if you see these orange circles, this first peak here, all of his asks got blown right through. He placed them perfectly, and the market pushed right through them, and he sold at the top of this peak. He sold, I mean, that was about at least 1,000 coins here. That was about almost 1,000 coins here. This time, I don't know if he's going to get all 1,000 coins, but he hasn't made any effort to chase the price. Usually when you have these ask walls and they're trying to manipulate, they're trying to like cap the price and hold it down prematurely, they move around. He hasn't moved. He literally sets the signposts and then he just lets the market buy them up, and he doesn't even wiggle if they don't, if the market's being timid and it's like, oh, it's not making it, other people will lower their walls. He hasn't. He just lets them.
But the other thing is he might just be, because there's so many theories to it, he might just be liquidating assets for a pump.
Yeah, absolutely could be.
Well, my hunch would be that he establishes his floor that at 414.
Yeah.
He's on the maybe not bidding, but he's accumulating, and that those firm selling levels are where he wants to take profits, and that the pump basically is a nice little profit window for him.
Could be.
The thing is that he could be liquidating his assets up there, and then he could say people are expecting a rally, and just like the 700 run up, if I start pumping some juice into this, I've only got to pump it, kind of like just like they do with Litecoin. I've only got to get it started, keep it maintained, and all the price chasing noobs are going to do all the hard work for me.
It's true.
And,
But right now, my general sense of him is that he has been unwilling to part with thousands of coins at the tops of these peaks, not in an attempt to suppress the price. He hasn't tried to stop it. I mean, it is slowed. BTCE has had these kind of sticking points. You know, China will go up and BTC will be like stick, stick, stick because of these walls. And yet, it's not like he's like dumping. He's not like putting additional coins in to say, no, I got to keep the price down. He just lets them get bought. And so all I know is he's been willing to sell thousands of coins up here at the top here. And if his intention is to say, I'm going to support with a big bid wall down here so that I can, you know, I'm going to use that bid wall to support a rocket rally, then my question is, why in the world is he unloading so many coins, you know,
Because
right here?
I don't think so. I think that for whatever it's worth, everybody's got an opinion, right? But I think that the floor is established to make the noobs, as our term here is, believe that that is the floor. And so, like you guys just said a second ago, he's going to just give it a little nudge, and then he's going to let all the retail people do the hard lifting.
I think that 2,000 coin bid wall is such an unusual wall on BTCE that it seems far too likely that he's going to just yank that. Once he's done doing his unloading on these descending peaks, he'll just be like, all right, I got rid of everything I wanted to as high as I could, yank the floor, there won't be anything left. Because I mean, I can switch back over again, but the order book is ridiculously thin compared to that wall. Underneath that, it will just go. And I know there'll be people, the bids will fill in, you know, as it gets cheaper, but right now, without that 2,000 coin wall, there's just very little resistance.
Yeah.
We see this Ron. This is very similar to what was happening on the 650 range.
Yeah.
Exactly the same style of play. It was put up the wall, let it get bought, put up the next one, let it get bought, and basically just continue to just keep letting. Basically, you're just creating bag holders. So you create all these people that bought in at this price. Then you market sell it down, you know, with some bad news to go with it, and then all those bag holders go, oh my god, I better get out.
That's right.
And that
this
helps
is precisely
break you down.
why, you know, we talk about Benjamin and we laugh about Benjamin showing up and being ominous and then never showing up again. But I got to tell you, whether he shows up or not, this scenario where you've got a group of people who have a plan, and he's very clear about the plan. He says, look, we have a lot of coins and we want to sell them and we want to cause a cascade, but we're waiting for the right news to be the catalyst so that we only have to expend as few coins as possible to cause such a sell-off. If we can time that with news, we prefer that.
Yeah.
You know? And he was very clear about it. He says, that makes less effort for us. And I think that's when we keep saying, well, it can't dive without the news, that's partially true. I just think that the market makers are perfectly patient and happy to wait until they can get just the right news to say, all right, now I only have to sell 500 coins and I get a rally that I get a sell-off that would have taken 2,000 coins and I only had to make, you know, half the effort to do it.
Well, hey, Ron, listen, on Stamp, exactly the same thing's happening.
What I would like to do here, guys, and I mean, hey, we could sit here for the next 3 or 4 hours and just chat. So,
but I'm gonna let you guys go.
If anything, this is probably a good dovetail for us here, Ron.
Okay.
I want to thank you very, very much for your analysis.
All right, and Andre wants to.
Yeah, I've got to come in with this because this is absolutely imperative. Because
so what I was going to do, Andre, is you're basically up next. You got the floor next, so you know you'll have our undivided attention. If you have a question for Ron, then that's cool. Go and ask, and he'll give you an answer. But we do have to keep the show moving on, and you're up next.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm going to use the start of my time to say, Ron, listen, exactly the same thing's been happening on Stamp. And we know Benjamin said that he works across multiple exchanges.
Yeah.
And on Stamp, we've had 1,000 coin hammer down from 440 to 430. Yeah. It bounced back up. He never bought back in, and then when it got back up to 440, we had another 1,000 coin hammer down. I call it the hammer down because it just goes boom. Another 1,000 coin hammer down, and it's rallied back up again, and again he still hasn't bought in. You know, we've got 2K coins from one user sitting out there waiting, so they're going to be pushing that down because they're not chasing in on that. They're not going to chase in on
Yeah, and
Crypo-currencies.
Benjamin was clear. He says, in this particular operation that he has planning, he says we have multiple people. He says I'm not playing Stamp, I'm playing BTC. And I asked him point blank. I said, "Are these your walls?" Because I was like, "This is really unusual behavior." And he told me, "No, those are not mine." And in my history with Benjamin in the past, he's never. I mean, to my knowledge, he's never lied to me. He's been terribly straightforward. So if I ask him, "Is this you?" he'll say yes or no. And I've seen him back in the Gox days. I say, "Ben, show me which of your orders," and he would literally he would put in orders with a specific number and say, "Do you see them?" I say, "Yes, I see them. Those are yours." "All right, this is me starting to sell, blah blah blah." So, could Benjamin be full of it? Of course he could. But what you're describing does fit, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that you have a group of whales who say, "Hey, you're going to sell on this stamp, I'm going to sell on here, he's going to sell on OKCoin, he's going to sell on Huobi. We're all waiting for the queue. When the queue comes, we do a coordinated sell-off and everyone starts to dive." And if it just makes sense. I mean, I would react to it. All the retail are going to react to it. I mean, that's what we're looking for. We're waiting for that cascade of red, and then we all jump on. So, all right.
So I would just like to, last thing I think we'll make here is I did have a question on the YouTube page. Basically, people are asking, who is this Benjamin? Maybe Andre, you and Ron, if we could, and I'll ask him too next time. Let's see if we can get him in here to give us his thoughts, because I think, yeah. Well, and there's also that Bernanke guy. Is he also in that same camp too?
No, he's not in part of the same group. He's also a Ben, but he has a very different style. He shows up out of the blue every now and then and just says a very cryptic statement to expect whatever, and literally doesn't show up again forever. So no, if you see Benjamin and Ben Bernanke both show up in the chat, sell. Because if they time their arrival, I mean, you've got two completely different players who both have a very big reputation for preceding a sell-off. So don't watch.
Okay.
All right.
One of them's fantastic, definitely.
All right. So for all those out in YouTube land and people in the lounge, we've had Ron in here tonight, first time on the show, so thank you very much for coming in, Ron. Really appreciate your thoughts. We can't all be bulls, so it's good that we have different perspectives.
Hey, I'm a bull just after this leg is done. Once this leg is done, I'm all bull.
Well, we can't all be bears too, but that's the great part about the market, is that we all have different opinions, and frankly, at any one given point in time, everybody's opinion is valid. So that's sort of the point that I was trying to make, and I really appreciate your thoughts, Ron. The nice fresh view, and if I haven't thanked you before, I'm going to thank you again. Thank you very much for coming into the show tonight and giving us your thoughts.
Thanks, Brian. See you guys.
Okay, you have a great night, Ron, and
I find out where my kids went. They're awfully quiet upstairs. I
Uh-oh. Let me guess. Right. Do you have any open paint cans around the house?
No, but I think they might be raiding all the cupboards or something. Maybe that's why they're quiet. All right.
All right. Well, you go have fun. Bye, thank you again. Cheers. All right, Andre. Now it's your turn. Obviously, we're going to shift gears a little bit here. Andre is a little bit different perspective, very enthusiastic, don't get me wrong, but we're probably going to get a little bit of a different message here. So, Andre, we've got about another half hour or so left in this show. Let's hear your thoughts and tell us why we should go out and market buy this thing right now.
Okay. Right, I mean, you just put it on my screen share. Oh, I haven't got my screen share on. I mean, one thing I would say is that I put on the Reddit post. I said, bears, come into this Google Hangout, because I like to look at the bull side, because I'm naturally very bullish on Bitcoin, but I love to hear the bear outlook, because you need to hear it, don't you? So
okay,
it's great
so
to
Andre,
hear.
What screen do you have on right now? Are you showing the YouTube page?
Yeah, I am, but I'll put it on the Trading View one. Can you see it?
Okay. Yeah. Now we got it. Good. All right. I'm gonna put myself on mute, and I want to be educated. So go.
Okay. So I loved hearing Ron's theory, especially with the whales. We love the whale play. It's great. But in counter to the whales, And counter to Ron's statement is that Ron he's very good at explaining his case, and I agree with him. I actually agree with him, but I also disagree with him, because I agreed with him on his 720 run-up chart, but I also disagreed with him on the 720 run-up chart. So I can believe it, and I can also choose not to believe it. So anyway, so I don't think that we are going to do another crazy. Well, to be honest, I'm perfectly happy with retesting the lows. I can't see us making a new low sub 350. I can see us going down 380 because I think the China news is having less and less impact every time, and I think the next time people will be a bit smarter. You'd hope so, and maybe 380 would hold, and very similar to like went 50 on the last bubble, down at 50 on. I just draw it here, was 50, and we never retested that low apart from there where we went to 70. So if we did 350 there, a 351 with people being a little bit wiser, a little bit more bullish this time, could see that happening. So we'll see. But yeah, I've got
Andre, I don't mean to interrupt. What is it that we're looking at here on your chart? Because I see gold, U.S. dollar. Then I see Mt. Gox and stamps. So can you tell us what we're looking at here on your chart?
Yeah, basically Monkey Phonics from TradingView, he just wrote this little bit of code that basically amalgamated the historical Mt. Gox data with the Bitstamp data, because the Bitstamp data didn't have the the very earlier data. So that's where this chart is. It's an average between the two prices basically, between Stamp and Gox, so you've got better historical data.
And why does the top of the chart say gold US dollar?
Monkey Phonics just said like you had to overlay that onto a different chart. So I don't know the technical scripting of it. I mean that's gold, this little red line. I mean Zoinky managed to get rid of it. I mean I don't know how this thing works.
Okay, I was just curious. People that are out on YouTube land, they're going to look at that and go, I don't understand what I'm looking at. So that's all.
Yeah, so that's what it is, and we had to custom write this RSI and Willy because it has to run off this historical data, the combination data, rather than the goal, which it's overlaid on. But I mean, what I just wanted to point out on this was basically look at where Willy is. I mean, the only other time Willy has been anywhere near stupidly oversold like this on the weekly is going right back to 2011. And so, so I like it. I think if you're going to buy and look to hold for 3 months, I have no problem buying here at all. If you're going to buy and go on holiday, I would choose to buy here rather than sleep in fiat. If you're going away for 3 months, what are you going to do? Sleep in fiat, or are you going to sleep in coin? I'd personally say sleep in coin. Don't want to eat my words, but there you go. And with regards to the RSI that Ron was talking about, I mean, I'm looking at the RSI here, and I mean, it's nowhere near like oversold. Could go miles down, but it's never actually been that low. But it's pretty much on a low with where it's also been on this 2011 super drop. So from a long-term perspective, you're not trading hourly, 4 hourly, daily, weekly, but monthly. I think now is cool to buy. The only thing that does concern me on this kind of long term is if you said that this is log natural trend line, this spike here was Bitcoin going mainstream, and this one was China. Is it a little bit kind of double exponential? Is it a bit log on log? Does it need a return to the mean? That's there, and that's why, I could quite see that, that I could see like a 2012 style movement of, very slow, gradual, something like this. I could see that, but there's a lot of good news coming in the future, so I'm not super keen on that idea. So long term.
You're more looking sideways rather than it just cranking down to that trend line.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing is, I can see us going down to the bottom, and I have charted it in the past going down there to even retest 300, but we need news, and that's going to take me straight to my second chart, which I just made. And this is basically what I'm saying, because if I just switch back to this one, you can see that, each bubble, it does go down. There's no doubt about it. But on this one, let's just take for example, we had news to motivate sellers really hard. Like just say, we could have just gone, where's my drawing tool? We could have just done the classic bubble like that. Let me change color. Yeah, the classic bubble pop from before, does that, the big double bottom, and then runs off. And that's what I was kind of expecting, but it didn't happen. And we started it. We did that. We went up, and then we did that, and then we came back up, and everyone was like, "Woohoo, woohoo!" And then it just carried on going. Obviously, you can see the chart, but yeah, we had major news has caused each one of these panic sells, and we've got China ban was the first drop. Mount Gox die, was good catalyst for the second one, really hammered it down. Once we're at the 700 range, it was obvious the price was still way too high. That was obviously going to come down, and Wales helped force that down because bulls were still stubborn, even though 7,700 was a ridiculous target. And then we had China ban Bitcoin, huge sell-off on the first one. They actually did it in two parts, didn't they? That was the first China ban, and then they come along and said, "Oh, we banned it again." That was the second one that caused the extra leg. Then there was a lot of bullish divergence here throughout the 4-hourly. That caused a spike, and we had this was the death cross as well here, which Brian said likes to spike up. And then we had China ban Bitcoin again, which was kind of like this recent kind of big panic sell-off, and then here this kind of natural retracement, and it just feels like everything's just kind of getting, you see the range of that, the range of that, the range of that, the range of that. Everything's just getting a little bit smaller, a little bit compressed and a bit condensed. So if you say that and chuck in a couple of just horizontal support lines, like that one there, which is basically just running through these wicks here. This one, this one, this one.
Tails.
Here. Yeah, tails. And also you got this double bottom here, which happened here. And then you've got this kind of mini double bottom that happened here. So, this is a good level. And, you buy on support, you sell on resistance. So this is what I've been saying. So for us to, the Bears want this dive down to 300. They want to, like Ron, he wants to breach this low. He wants to go to 300, as his chart says. And, people want more. People want more blood. But let's just say we're gonna do some diving down this. And the whales are obviously positioning themselves for this. But if we're going to do this, like on these other instances, for people like this, for this kind of event, and this one, is masses of people en masse turning into bears and just selling collectively and hammering through and breaking the floor on support. And so you can see this, we've just been kind of creeping up a bit here, and I've got some targets for this as well. We'll do in the next chart. But yeah, we've been creeping up, and Ron said, "Oh, look, it is slightly different to the other ones." He said because these ones were going down on the slight angle, followed by a rollover, going down, followed by a rollover. This was just a consolidation on the way further down, and this one down. Obviously we went up a huge amount. We've got to retrace that, and so down, and then a rollover. But this one here, but now, for the first time since all of this period, apart from this kind of natural bounce, but since all of this period, this is the first time we're actually crawling up, and so that's why I think it's it's a bit different, but we'll see. But anyway, yeah. So for sellers to turn en masse and hammer through support on the floor, there's just got to be some kind of motivation. Because if people keep dribbling and dribbling, we could go sideways so long, maybe a little couple of dips that, maybe we'll bounce the trend line before making a new low. And we know 400 strong anyway. I mean, sellers are struggling to be motivated right now. People have clamped up. They've gone to lockdown. I notice Stamp, when it thinks it's on a bullish thing, it clamps up really tight, and when it gets scared, they're panic selling, making new lows every day. But yeah, people have clamped. They seem to have clamped up really tight, and there's a lot of coin out of position. The price is coming up. People think, oh, don't want to get left behind, the old thing, So I think we need some kind of major news to breach this, to hammer this down. And with China kind of having less and less impact on each one, unless basically Huobi or OKCoin says we're shutting down, I just don't know what's going to motivate sellers to just hammer through such strong support.
Have you? I don't know whether Again, I come from sort of stock market land, and I've noticed historically that usually IPOs actually represent a catalyst in the market. We all remember the Facebook fiasco where that IPO'd, and then basically that was the peak of the market, and then price had to retrace. I'm wondering whether this, what are they called, the Winkelsteins or Finkelsteins or something like that. They're trying to IPO this Bitcoin issue on the NASDAQ, and I'm wondering whether that's going to act as a bit of a ceiling in itself. Any thoughts?
I think when Winklevoss ETF comes on, people are just going to panic buy like hell, because it's going to access, allow funds access to, the Bitcoin market, and I just think, there's only so many around, and I just think it'll just be a feeding frenzy.
Because to do the IPO, they have to be buying up the assets here, right? Because once they list it, they have to say that they are actually long all these coins for the
They've already
ETF.
got them, haven't they?
Well, so they bought. Zoinky here says they bought 200,000.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether. I guess it's something that I've seen time and time again. In fact, I've played penny stocks where the day that they're listed on the senior exchange is the day you get the hell out, and once that's happened, then the issue has to go through another down cycle to wash out the euphoria of that event. So, and I understand it's not a penny stock, but interestingly enough, there are a lot of similarities. It's a penny asset. There are a lot of similarities to the way these assets actually perform, whether it be a penny stock, whether it be a blue chip, whether it be a commodity, whether it be I suppose you could argue that this Bitcoin is a commodity in that there's a finite supply. So, okay, so that's cool. So, sorry to interrupt, Andre. Continue. I apologize.
Yeah, well, I would say, I mean, I think that'd be a pretty good thing to do. Everybody thinks Winklevoss ETF, big money's coming to the market, panic buy, panic buy, panic buy, and then it gets on, and then the the institutional funds could say, let's let it die for a bit, and then everybody go, oh, the money's not there, nobody's buying, and it could have a bit of a fake out after that, so it would make sense.
Kind of like the buy on the rumor, sell on the news kind of stuff. I mean it's out there, and I think we should appreciate that.
Yeah. So basically, my core thing with this long-term one here. So just to wrap up the two long-term ones, the monthly one says buy. I like that for a buy on the monthly. On the daily one, if to satisfy these bears and really rip into new lows, I'm not averse to the idea as long as I'm on the right side of it. But I just think there needs to be some serious good catalysts come out. I'm struggling to think what that is, and it might come, it might not. So we'll see. So those are my two.
I did see the other day a news article about how the regulators in North America were saying that they wouldn't expect to have a regulated North American exchange until 2016. So, some sort of disappointment like that might be the catalyst to sort of take the wind out of the sails. Not necessarily
well,
super negative, just people go, oh, really? Well, maybe I'll wait a year or two before I buy.
yeah, I mean, the good thing that I would say for the run-up, for the next run-up, is that we do have the ATMs worldwide. So for me, if we had China crash, if we had GOX crashing from the servers being overloaded the first time, on this big peak, and then we had China banning on this big peak, the next big peak could be the ATMs overloading because so many people are shoveling their life savings into it.
Yeah.
That would be the dream. And obviously, the real dream would be Dubai, because obviously there's so much money over there. You've got just absolutely boatloads of money. If we can get Dubai, Abu Dhabi, if we can get the UAE to start pooling their money into it, then the market cap will just explode, and it'll be, if we can set off a greed fest with the oil money, market cap will go ballistic. So plenty of room to go super parabolic yet. So yeah, long term, I say buy. Daily, weekly, if you want to satisfy the bears, hammer it down, get some good FUD out there. But let's zoom in a little bit further. So this is what are we on, a 4 hour?
Okay.
This is something I charted the other day. I didn't publish it, but I do send it out in the chat box a few times. And that, just to talk you through this briefly, let's get a bit of a color going. This is the peak up here at 540 after the big drop, and this here is a kind of double bottom. It's a lower low, I know, on Stamp, but on Hubi it was a perfect double bottom. And then we kind of,
oh, there he is.
And then we bounced up, and we retraced down, and then when we went, let's get a color. What should we go for? Red. And then when we come up here, everyone was like, bear flag, look, we're gonna go down. Unfortunately, we didn't. What actually happened was we kind of bear flagged, and then we came back up, and we double bottomed. And by the way, it's worth pointing out that kind of this here was a big 1,000 coin sell, really kicked this off, and a 1,000 coin sell hammered it down here, and nobody followed. Nobody joined the 1,000 coin seller party, and so it kind of double bottomed again there. So we've got the double bottom in the double bottom, and then we've had a nice little move here. We're going to have a nice little natural retracement. Cloud's gone bullish. It's thin, obviously weak, still looking good. And I don't mind another leg here. And I don't mind another leg to this this level. I'm still looking for this level, 38.2, 469. We know, because as we can see on my facts here, we know the 38.2 is a nice retracement, both bullish and bearish. We know it's a sticking point. It creates a lot of problems. We've got a bullish A, B, C, D target on these blue lines that points right to it, and we've got some lovely candle tops that are sitting right on 460. And also, I think there's kind of a bear line hitting this as well. So this 460 to 470 range will be pretty much impenetrable unless we are going to really move somewhere. And the other thing is that we've got this trend line on the RSI, which price is obeying, and the retracement could take us down, and we could keep going. And there's no reason why we can't keep doing that. And 4 hour Willy, as you can see, we've got bags of room up here, bags of room. So that could easily give us at least a double top up here, or like I said, hopefully up to 460, 470, and then we're going to have to come down again, no doubt. So yeah, so I'm looking for another little step up here, but we'll just see whether buyers are going to be motivated enough or not. But like I say, lack of selling pressure really, that's why this range is pretty tight. Sellers aren't really motivated, buyers aren't really motivated, and we're just kind of coiling right now. So that's my 4 hour.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Interesting how different the momentum indicators on the 4 hour are versus the 1 hour. And actually, it's interesting that you're going to pop up the 1 hour here, because we were looking at the 1 hour with Ron, and they look pretty sanguine, but the 4 hours here don't look so bad.
Yeah, and to be honest, Can I go back and undo that? Yeah. To be honest, this is a little strategy that I use, and it's a really good strategy. Okay, I'm going to give away my best secret now, and that is if you're kind of in amongst all this messy slop going on, and you're thinking, God, what am I going to do? I want to sell. All right, you can just wait, just hold, be strong, because at some point 4-hour Willie is going to spike. I know he didn't go stupid here, but he did go stupid here, and he did go stupid here. And at some point, I mean, what's the time period of that? 14th of, what's that? 14th. That's almost a month ago, that one. But this one was just 4 days ago. And this spike, it was a pretty good spike. You could feel it. You could feel it, and it was on the cloud, so it was a good spike. You could just feel it. There's a lot of signals on the hourly on that one to sell, but yeah, if you wait for a 4-hour heavy movement on the Willie and you sell there, what you do is you make sure you get a really good sell price, and that's cool because it means that then you can just wait. You can be patient, and if you sell on a 4-hour top and you get a heavy down leg, you can buy and just sell here. Because as long as you buy in before this peak here, you're gonna have more BTC than what you started with. So you can just be really aggressive. Like as soon as you buy, just set $10 sell, set $10 up sell. You can be really aggressive on that, and just increase fiat as much as possible, knowing that as long as you just buy back in before that good sell point, and you've got a good sell point, then you're going to be golden. So that's just something I do. Using the 4-hour Willie is a good sell tool. But yeah.
All right. All right. And
Wait.
so we don't have a heck of a lot of time left. I wouldn't mind asking or answering a few questions that have been posted. So let's fire up your 1 hour, and
Okay,
I don't know. Were you thinking about doing a 15-minute, or do we want to just do the 1 hour?
No, no volatility for the 15-minute. Just got the 1 hour.
Okay, so let's cap you off with a nice 1 hour analysis, and then we'll get on to questions.
Okay, so 1 hour RSI. You can see I just drew this little horizontal line right at the top, and if you look where RSI was before, you can see these were quite good spikes, overall. So so that was one thing. We've got this bearish divergence in the momentum on the MACD going on. Higher high, lower low on the MACD. That was another reason. We got 1 hour Willie, pretty stupid. So that was another reason. And the price was also sitting in this OTE zone between 448 and 452. So I sold between 448. I sold everything between 448 and 450, just because there was 1, 2, 3, 4 good reasons to sell. To be honest, I was liking this rally. I didn't want to sell. I wanted to just keep going to the moon, but the chart said sell, and I thought, I'm just going to sell anyway, and we'll see what happens. And luckily, it has started to retrace, and you can see 1 hour. Hopefully, going to begin making a down leg. RSI's broke down here. So.
Isn't that interesting? And so that's just yet another testament to the idea that we have to obey our indicators.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't want to at all. I didn't want to, and I just did it. But assuming it's a top, and it doesn't, because it could put in like there it topped out, and it didn't top out there, but it did put in a higher high, and that just carries just bearish divergence. You can see it just plummeted. But assuming that is the top on it, just a low off that one, and a high off that one, off that OTE zone where it hit, that could be a 1 hour oscillation, on the Willie, which would take us to this OTE zone, which would bang us on the bottom of that trend line that Ron was charting. This, I'll move it to 4 hour to make it a bit easier. This kind of like wedge that we've got going on at the moment. So and then up down to there. So that's kind of what I'm looking at really on the 1 hourly at the moment.
This is getting really tricky in here, isn't it?
Yeah, Yeah, so that's why I'm trading. Really, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, this was a $20 move here from 430 to 449.5. That was a $20 move. I think I got like 13 to $15 out of it myself. But that was,
Okay.
I mean, that's about as good as it gets at the moment.
Yeah, I remember when the market was tanking there, and it's interesting, and I've said this before. You and Landon both jumped in on the long side down there in the mid 30s. So way to go on that buy. Way to go. That was just brilliant. And it's interesting to see that. It'd be interesting to see where Landon's up to right now. According to Ron, I guess he's still pretty bullish. But I can understand why we might be topping out up top here. So good grab on the long there, Andre. Way to go. You're a very good trader. I've said it before and I'll say it again.
So let's see what the panel's got then, shall we?
Sure. Lots of information thrown at you guys tonight. I did see Pedro ST. He posted a question here, so I thought it just ought to be addressed. He says, I've got a question for you. When you were first charting and analyzing Bitcoin, you just saw kind of a perpetual, a trading range, and wouldn't expect another ATH nor anything above 800, I think. So has your perspective changed, and why? Um, I'm a really big fan of this concept of the OTE. You've probably heard me say it quite a bit here. We'll put this on log, so I think you can see it a little better. Let's make sure that you guys can see my screen. Yep, okay. And it's my general feeling that, and you've probably heard me say it before, that institutions have absolutely no interest in chasing markets, and they will be patient. And it's interesting that we heard, basically Ron and Andre here tonight say that, just be patient, be patient, be patient. So, if you've taken any of the or watched any of the shows previously, and if you've followed my advice and watched Mr. ICT Huddleston, he talks simply about the fact that institutions really like this concept of the optimal trade entry, or the 61.8 fib to the 78.6 fib. And basically through this, this is actually our 8th show now, so we've been doing this for a couple months, and I think the message has basically been the same. That if we do get down into this green box here, this is where institutions are interested in buying. So ironically enough, the public, they're interested now in what's the plans for summer vacations, schools ending, Christmas gifts. That's sort of like ancient history for people. And so it doesn't surprise me that the public has lost interest, and yet this is exactly where the institutions would be like, okay, time to back the truck up, let's start buying. And hearing stories about like the Winklefinkles or whoever the heck they are, floating an exchange-traded fund. Well, I suppose if they're buying 200,000 coins, they're rather institutional in their approach. So if we understand that, our last major pivot was way down here at, on Bitfinex here, it was $83 and change, and our peak was, $11.75 on this guy. And keep in mind that, I just eyeball this fib, so these numbers aren't exactly accurate. But it shouldn't surprise us that we're seeing buyers come in this neighborhood. So, if we take the exact flip coin scenario, and we say, all right, if I was an institution and I wanted to short this thing, where would I short? Would I be a seller here at $400? No. Where would I short? I don't know whether I really want to use this fat finger bar, but if we just did a simple fib off of this recent 340 low area, then we can make a realistic argument that institutions would be very interested in shorting this area. So institutions, they have the patience of Job, and they have very deep pockets. So, kind of just what we've been hearing tonight, an institution that did want to short and, had a negative bias, who knows why, their reasons are their reasons. Are they going to be shorting here? No. And how ironic, the 78.6 fib is basically $1,000, right? How ironic that, they would, regardless of whether they're bullish or bearish right now, this is the area where they're going to seriously start considering shorting this thing if they believe that this is a range market. So to answer your question, until we stop this sort of range behavior, my feeling is that rallies will meet significant resistance up in this area here. Now, I don't know when this is going to come. This might come, Ron had a chart that suggested that this rally could come by July, right? And so July would be right there. That might be a little bit aggressive. This might take several years to play out. You just don't know. But if I was going to pick a level where I believed institutions are going to say, all right, thou shalt stop going up, this is the area where I would expect that to happen. Now, like a lot of people in the chat have been like, well, I think it's a short, I think it's a short, I think it's a short. I would argue just from a simple opportunity cost perspective, how far down can this thing really go? Remember, we talked about this old significant historical high where I know for certain, just because I played this game so long, I know for certain that there are a bunch of open orders just sitting, waiting for this old high. And they're just sitting. The open orders are just sitting, waiting to buy at this old high. So, if I know where there's significant buying interest, and I know where there's significant selling interest, the question really becomes, what's my risk to actually do a trade at this level? And, I would actually just put the chart at something like this. If I'm selling here, then at best, my feeling is that, okay, great, maybe there's, $200 to be made there if we're lucky. If I'm buying here at this 450 level, I could realistically make $400. So my opportunity cost now to do the trade is actually skewed towards the bullish camp at the moment, in my opinion. So, that would just basically be my 2 cents there. Yes, I believe that we are in a ranging environment. And, if you've watched my shows, or I should say our shows, of late, then you'll know that my basic message is, I think that we're consolidating at an OTE level, and there's actually, in my opinion, more risk to selling at these levels than there is reward. I think it's far riskier to be a shorter or a seller here than it is to be a buyer. So hopefully that answers your question. But the long and short of it is, until I start seeing, as a trader, you can potentially see a double bottom. This is a daily chart, so you can see double bottomish type action. If we blow this up and look at shorter terms, you can see, we've got actually a W here contained within a larger W here, contained within another W here. So we're starting to actually layer some pretty interesting price action in here. You've heard me say before that V bottoms are not indicative of bull markets. V bottoms are unsustainable. V bottom, right? If we are going to be bullish, we need to start seeing more W type action, right? We need to start seeing lows tested, lows holding, price rejecting, and moving through highs. So, and we are starting to get that. And like we said, this is exactly what's supposed to happen through these OTE zones. So hopefully that addresses your question. I would argue that we are, if these lows hold and we put in a double bottom, then I would argue that this is our trading range now, right? From these old highs down to this low. And if that's the case, then the odds are that we'll have to visit, we have the first stop target. Here's the 38.2, so that's going to be a real battle area, and what a coincidence. It's right up against some significant highs. And then if you look to the left of the chart, the next significant highs just so happen to be right in this OTE zone here, right? And this would be the OTE short zone. So that's why I would say that we're in a range market at the moment. So I'm just going to pop over to the YouTube page and see whether that answers your question. So where was that? That was Pedro ST. Pedro, did that answer your question? Maybe you can just post a little yes or no.
Hey, I'm going to chime in here, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Adam D, OPEC will price oil and Bitcoin. They will. They will in the future. I think they will. And I also want to point out two websites as well while we're talking about it. First one is bitcoinpulse.com. Everybody should have a look at that. It's a type of website that you look at and go, wow, that's so cool, and you never look at it again for 6 months. But, it is,
what are we looking at here? What is this?
Bitcoin Pulse. Can you see it on my screen, can you?
Yeah, I can see it. So what are we looking at here?
It's coin metrics. Look, you can change it from weekly to monthly to yearly. Average growth is your average growth column. You can change it, and you're looking at average growth of number of My Wallet users, number of Coinbase users, number of merchants.
Well, that's cool. That actually is really good information.
Yeah, and you can see everything's growing. Look, everything is growing. Look, in all metrics, angel list, number of followers up, number of companies, number of jobs, number of investors, number of downloads on the client.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Talk, number of members on the forum.
Swanky, let's keep this clean, please.
Yeah, so everything you can see, all the cool metrics are up.
What are all these ones down at the bottom that are not so uppy?
Average transaction confirmation time, that's gone down a bit. Don't know why. Bit of a bleed on that one. What's that one all about? Number of transactions excluding popular addresses. Don't even know what that means. But yeah, everybody should have a look at bitcoinpulse.com, and you can have a look through and just reassure yourself.
Just bitcoinpost.com, like that.
Pulse, like the
pulse,
like your heart, like your heartbeat. Yeah, and everybody should have a look.
Like
and that's good.
That it?
Yeah, bitcoinpulse.com. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's good metrics there. Just good to reaffirm yourself that look, everything is growing in the Bitcoin network, and we know that from Metcalfe's law, the value of the network is the square root of the amount of users participating in that network. Maybe it's not that exactly, but it's about that close enough. So as the number of users grow, we know that the number of coins per person is going to go down. It's rarity, supply, demand. Infrastructure keeps growing, supply keeps growing. Demand keeps growing, supply gets smaller. It's a good sign for price. So that's the one site I'd recommend to have a look at. And the other one just popped up today on Bitcoin markets. Brian, you'll like this one. Bitcoin Future. Bitcoin Options Marketplace.
Woohoo!
So there you go. And you can go on the whatever it is, bitcoinfuture.com, or you can go on papertrade.bitcoinfuture.com to just paper trade it. So there you go. A couple of cool sites for people to check out.
And okay, so I see that you posted the Bitcoin Pulse. Can you post the link for that last one that you talked about?
Yeah, I'll do the paper trade one. The other one, I don't know where it's on the Bitcoin market subreddit. But here, Zoinky's left a comment. Blockchain's API for developers making services have a function to create a new user for each user that joins their site in order to make sure the wallet doesn't get too many addresses in it. Oh yeah, he's talking about why the number of wallets, would go down. It's because it's just the way it works. But don't ruin the Ponzi, Zoinky. Come on, we need oil money. This is what I've been saying in the chat, right? There's I don't know if you've seen that meme, and it's like one does not simply short Bitcoin, with Sean Bean on it from Lord of the Rings. And what I've been saying in the chat lately is one does not simply buy into the Bitcoin Ponzi scheme without at least convincing another 5 other buyers to come in after you to help pump the price.
Right.
So we don't just buy into Bitcoin. When you buy into Bitcoin, it is your duty as a Bitcoin holder to then get other people to buy in to help boost up your investment. It's classic. And so when we get that's why we sound like a cult, because we have to. So when we get the Arab oil money flowing in, and they start telling their fellow rich friends to buy in, then we've got total, and we start telling them it's the new reserve currency, it's better than gold, and everybody's going to use it, and we start a greed fest, and them telling their other friends to buy into the Ponzi, then we can get that market cap really exploding.
Fair enough, but I will just a caution of note to any viewers out there in YouTube land. There is fundamental reason for the Bitcoin to exist. We do understand that we are in a massive 17.5-year fear cycle, which is basically anti-paper assets and pro-commodity assets. So aside from, the issue here, of course, is that a lot of people here are just purely speculative. They want to see 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 plus per coin, just making capital gains. And I appreciate Andre's enthusiasm, but the less we talk about Ponzi, and the more we talk about a fundamental justification for the Bitcoin's existence and how it sort of fits into the bigger picture of money flows and why people are moving away from the U.S. dollar, I think it lends credibility to our story. So, anybody who's listening, Ponzi's fun to talk about, but that's not our motivation here, and we're really not promoting the idea that Bitcoin is a Ponzi.
One does not simply mention Ponzi when talking about Bitcoin.
Okay.
Don't mention the P word.
All right. So, we're well after 7 o'clock here. Tonight's show is totally awesome. I mean, hearing Ron's thoughts was just, it's what I really like to hear are different perspectives. And Jesse, do you have a mic, Jesse? Because you're posting quite a bit. Do you feel like coming in and just giving us your thoughts? Not tonight. Okay.
He's just trolling.
We'll grab you another night. But the long and short of it here is I really enjoy these shows, and I think that our viewers get really good value out of them. We like to try and make sure that, number one, the audience understands what sort of the backdrop is here, and I think we've made the case that we are still consolidating. And we always want to put all of this stuff into perspective. We want to make sure that we're not biting off more than we can chew if we are thinking about buying an asset, all of those kind of fun things. I myself have been very privileged to get to know some really great traders, and really dig into their brains and really understand what motivates them as traders and making money. It's just everybody out there should take away that it's a real privilege to listen to people like Ron and Andre give their opinions and their advice. This is, some people will pay, thousands of dollars to listen to somebody like Andre, and you guys are getting this for free. So, where's my little
Hey, right.
sound effects?
Let me just chime in there, Brian, because I would say to everybody, sell your wife, sell your dog, sell your kids, remortgage your house, and put every single you max out all your credit cards, buy everything you've got, because I need my coin to go up in value so I get richer, and that's the requirement. You will be the wealthy elite of tomorrow. You will be the next 1%ers if you just buy in that little bit more.
And by the way, your buy is filling Andre's sell order.
Yes.
But anyway, long and short of all this, I think we had a great episode tonight. I think we learned lots. If you did enjoy the show and you got value of it, here comes another plug. My website, therationalinvestor.ca, I'd encourage you to go to it if you want to reciprocate and you want to pass the karma around. Feel free to donate and ensure that we can continue these shows indefinitely. Feel free to visit my website. Tons of information here that's all free. I come from a financial planning and broker background, so lots of information to try and keep you at least from not biting off more than you can chew. Lots of information on how to trade and setups. I mean, I absolutely love the fact that my disciples here at TradingView are, and it's fascinating to see, I've laid out the rules on how to trade, why to trade, what your motivation is. I've given the community some indicators that work really, really well for me that I've developed. And these people have just, some of them have just grabbed the idea and just run with it. And Andre, for example, I mean, I guess he, as soon as he saw the Willie, and as soon as he saw some things like having 3 reasons to take a trade, it just clicked with him intuitively, and he just rock and rolled with it. And it's beautiful to watch him just kill the market using these tools. So I know that they work. I know there's value in all of this stuff. And really, my advice to you is just grab the bull by the balls, as they say, and just run with it. Because we do have an opportunity here. Here's my to the moon shot. Ready, guys? We know that we're in a 17-and-a-half-year fear cycle. We know that these cycles end with violent, violent moves. Sometimes they can literally bring countries to their knees. So, with that backdrop, we know that the US dollar is the world's sort of financial asset proxy. We know that there's lots and lots of fundamental reason why the US dollar is vastly overvalued, and Bitcoin is a realistic alternative for the world to look at if they're considering moving away from the US dollar. So put it all together. I lived through the dot-com boom. I've lived through gold market booms. I know for certain that if the market grabs a hold of this, the sky's the limit. 5,000, 10,000, 40,000 is not unrealistic given all of the backdrop. So, only thing left to do, boys and girls, is DJ take us out of here. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you guys next week if we can. Try to come in and have some fun. And everybody, good luck trading and all the best to you and your families. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, Google.
PC wanted to reboot.